do you want to just drag in everyone who's a loser then?
I don't want to do it at the same time. I'm just gonna do more
Yeah,
at a
I know,
time.
just at a time.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I'll do that in a
Yeah.
second. Let's do
Oh, I was thinking I got a
divide is right
message.
up here. Actually, we'll do Zip Zip since he was complaining.
All right, Zip Zip, you ready?
Well, I was complaining?
Yeah.
Zip Zip, you should be
People
able
were
to do
complaining
this
that you
one
got
pretty.
scammed, not you.
Well, I did. I was supposed to have a minute and you kicked me out because I was
Don't
complaining.
worry, Zip Zip, this is
Ooh.
easy. I already gave you the question for this earlier, so you should be able to answer it.
Uh-oh, Rick.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what 5 words would you etch onto your bullets?
Oh my god. Do we have to, guys?
I didn't say what you're doing with them. I'm just saying if you're going to etch some bullets, what 5 words would you do?
Well, see you later. Here
Vote
comes the
DRT
FBI.
0, Rinlux is bad. Is that 5 words?
Yep.
No. Also,
No.
Dang. All right.
That lucky
Okay.
camper?
That lucky camper. If you were going
Hello?
to etch 5 words into bullets, what would it be?
Wait, I want to make a point of order first. Can
More
I?
than 5 words.
Well, that sucks, but I don't want to answer your question.
Oof. Okay, next one.
Wait, let me make a point of order. Hello?
Make
Am I
it.
still here?
Point
Okay.
of order.
I feel like I was cheated in the first round. What?
Okay.
But I didn't answer.
Just make your yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I was cheated in the first round. I wasn't told that people couldn't hear me, so I feel like the people have been robbed of a legitimate vote. So I would like to say this has been a horrible election. Yeah,
Kind of redemption round for you to come
Wait,
back.
are you?
well, that's fair.
Aren't you not British? What are you?
I'm Dutch, and I'm offended by you thinking I'm British.
Hey.
What's wrong with that? We learned the.
Okay. Next up,
Stale?
Stale 2000. Hey, buddy.
Yep.
If you were going to etch 5 words onto bullets, what would those words be?
Repeated popular movie slop stale 2000.
Dope. Okay, next up.
All right. So back.
Sobek. If you were going to etch 5 words into bullets, what would they be?
Let's go with Stale 2000, Futanari, John Hentai, and Pickles Nathan. Is that 5?
Close enough. Thank you.
Chushu?
All right, Shushu. If you were going to etch 5 words in bullets, what would they be?
Putin, 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 Putin.
Dope. Okay, next up. Sarky, if you were going to etch 5 words into bullets, what would they be?
Hi. Fuck riggers, fuck riggers, fuck riggers. Wait, that's 6.
Thank you.
I got too many.
Next up is going to be Pickles. If you had etch 5 words in bullets, what would they be?
If reading this, you're gay.
All right, thank you, Pickles. Next up is going to be Peasy. Give me those 5 words you would etch into bullets.
And then.
Okay.
Oh, easier.
Oh, easy.
Don't read the next one.
What?
Jesus.
Okay. I got that one. All right, next up.
Osmo?
Ozma.
Yeah.
What 5 words would you etch into bullets?
You got cut off. Say that again.
What 5 words would you etch into bullets?
This wasn't really a thinking question.
I kind of like you got cut off. It's kind of a good 5 words, honestly.
We're all.
Sure. Oh,
There you go.
he just started speaking. Wait, no, bring it back. I'm sorry. Wait, continue.
I said we're all gonna die.
Okay. Next up,
Okay.
Kev.
Yo, what's
Five
good?
words. 5 words that you would etch into a bullet.
Release the conductor files. Kev. Oh,
Okay.
how many more people are left on this bracket?
Only about 20
One more.
Did you say one more or
divide
20 more?
NZL. I think this is this our last one, or we got like 1 or 2 more?
Just Aerith left.
Okay.
Okay. Divide NZL.
It's Hassan Piker's fault. # obsessed.
Okay. Okay. And our last one, Aerith.
Hi again.
Aerith, what 5 words did you etch into a bullet?
I'm sorry, what was that?
What 5 words would you etch into a bullet?
Let's see. Coconut Red Bull is the best. Those would be my 5 words.
Wow.
Destiny commentary on the Red Bull flavor.
I've never had it before. But if I were to etch 5 words into bullets, it would be trans rights are human rights.
Based.
All right.
Okay,
I'm putting
cool.
together
We're going to open up the polls, guys. This is only a single winner out of all of them, and they're going to get to come into the final round.
They're gonna get to comment. Wait, wouldn't they? What do you mean final round? Wouldn't they just be the person who makes it?
The person that makes it, they get to the
We have to
final
find out
round
the
with the other
big
people.
X.
There.
I thought the final
Yeah,
round
the
is
final
4.
round.
Don't we have 4 people? Isn't that 4 winners?
No, we've got 6 people right now, and we're going to get our 7th, and then we're going to get into the final round and elect
Oh.
the 4 conductor, whatever.
Gotcha.
Wait, so you really think that wasn't a real noise? How did they respond so quickly that time then?
They're responsive and shady at best.
I mean, they kind of were. They kind of had time to prepare 5 words. Oof. Kev, we all heard you. Come on and say stuff.
What do you want, Kev? Why?
Yo, I was meant to say that was the 5 words. Everyone should vote for Kev. There we go.
That is a cool thing for them to find on a bullet casing. That'll be so confusing.
Yeah.
Destiny, what's your take on the recent drama around people that don't think things are so bad right now?
I think things are pretty bad.
Well, how should we feel about them? People that we want to be our allies, but they're like, it's not that bad yet.
I have when we have these conversations, especially with their conservatives that are in panels, it feels really weird. Fuck, I don't know my sound making worse shit. Hold on. Great. Sorry. There's this weird feeling of you're sitting around trying to figure out what to eat. And you've got 5 people, and 2 of them want cheese pizza, or maybe they want sausage pizza, and then the other 3 want to eat liquidated diarrhea shit. And you're having this conversation well, how do we appeal to these guys? Maybe our pizza might be a little bit soggy, or haven't there been times in the past where we've gotten the order wrong? And the other 3 are they're nodding as you're trying to appeal to them, and they just want to literally consume diarrhea. And I feel this happens where we're oh, well, maybe we have to be perfect because Trump voters can get turned off if liberals are insensitive or something, and then on their side they're all trans people are pedophiles. And yeah, we got to be careful because sometimes we're not listening to them, we're not doing a good job incorporating their wants and needs, and then on their end they're yeah, they want to cut all of our kids' dicks off. And it's yeah, and I think that just sometimes some of the rhetoric we use when we call them fascists or Nazis is just a little bit over the top. And then on their side they're yeah, all of you guys are basically groomer pedophiles trying to indoctrinate our children in every level of education. And it's just the asymmetry of that conversation just feels like a huge fucking joke to me. I just don't understand. Every conservative panel I've been on, the last one with Tally and the other guy, and then we're the 3 of us are sitting there trying to brainstorm oh, how do we appeal to these people who insist that they are moderates, who insist that they are reasonable, who don't seem to give a fuck about anything happening in the current administration, but are endlessly critical of every small word said by any single person who ostensibly identifies as liberal on either side. I just feel so stupid to me.
Yeah, I kind of was struck by something. I think I agree a lot with your sentiment there, but then I think also something that I saw the other day where I was watching IRI on TikTok, and I tried to get on, and I realized that app is like pure cancer AIDS, and it's impossible to figure out how to get onto his stream and talk to him. But I feel like he is closer to your side, but he still has this kind of idea that like, oh, a lot of people in MAGA were tricked. And I feel like that's kind of what the sentiment I get from like Not So Erudite or Hutch, where they're like, no, these people reachable, they were all tricked into voting for MAGA. And I don't know where that really comes from, because I don't ever feel like I'm talking to somebody that was tricked, other than the fact that like I think that Donald Trump and then like lied to these people, but like I don't think that that's necessarily a trick, right? Like these people voted for the things that Donald Trump said, and the things he said were horrible. And even if Donald Trump delivered on his lies, that's still horrible, right? It's just that he did things even worse than what he lied about, right? And so
yeah, I don't know what
like,
the trick thing means, but like also
yeah,
I don't think
that.
I don't think that there's anything I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to appeal. Like even there are times in my speech, or depending on who I'm talking to, where I'm at, I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to appeal to like independents or appeal to like Trump voters. I think you can do that if you want, but the primary purpose of the Democratic Party should be to appeal to turn out more like center left Dems. That should be like the main primary focus. And insofar as like if there's any rhetoric there that turns off independents or center right voters, then fuck them. I don't give a fuck. Like the overwhelming majority of the Democratic Party messaging needs to be on turning out those center left voters. And if other people want to work around the edges or do other things, I think that's totally fine. But that's absolutely not the focus. Yeah.
Which, yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of, yeah, that's where I was going with it there. It's like, if you're operating under this idea about, like, oh, these people are tricked, then there's like some kind of like, well, maybe we can find a way to like cut through and convince them. And to me, I'm more on your side where it's like, no, we're not, like, that's really just not the priority. But since like a lot of these people, they want to have this kind of optics or like public facing view where it's like, no, I'm always willing to reach out. Like anytime a MAGA voter is ready to reach out and come over to our side, I'm here for them. And in their mind, to maintain that kind of like opportunity for people to come back, they think they need to like endlessly give them charity. Otherwise, they're quote unquote turning them away, right?
People are saying you fucked the last poll. What does that mean?
Seems fine to me.
I made it ranked choice, and then they got angry because there were 40 choices.
So who's the winner?
Wise Pie.
Wise Pie, congrats on winning the redemption round. You are going to be in the finals. Let's go ahead and get all of our finalists together and bring them in for our final round.
This is the conductor debate.
Yes.
Well, YKY and Wise Pie won't be here, I don't think.
Okay. Let's see.
Hello.
Are we missing one person?
We're missing like
Hello.
Wise Pie, YKY, Food Night, Tort, DRTO, Cha-Cha, and then...
I'm just gonna say that last poll was
What about pizza?
bullshit. What the fuck, Gridlux?
Is pizza
Shimoshi?
not...
Yeah, you're just farming.
Gonna come in?
Bro, if I'm conductor, you're never gonna see a poll like that, alright?
This last poll is evidence of what we're talking about, bro. Fucking retarded.
That was a DRT0 poll with anime at the top and everything else at the bottom.
Bro, my polls are legit. I even have like statistical analysis done by infuriatingly.
Yo, who compiled the statistics?
Yeah, we've
Is it you?
We've polls.
I need to mute one moment.
Did we trigger his autism or something?
All right, I'll be
Yeah.
right back, guys.
I love
if you guys
polls,
want to start
man. I
without me,
love
you
polls.
can. But I gotta grab.
I
some.
always poll. Chat, I always poll. I never ever force a movie upon DGG.
Sometimes you
poll.
have to, though, right?
No, you don't. You don't. People
mean,
don't
yeah,
want to
sometimes
see
shit gets
a movie
stale.
from 1967. Okay, they don't want to see a black and white movie. They don't want to hear like
Yeah, I would
weird
never play that,
indie
though.
niche,
That's some Runlux
psychedelic
Pickles
music
Nathan
or whatever.
pick.
People want to hear bangers. People want to see cool movies that they can farm emotes. People just want to have fun. People just want to be
Wait, why am I
together in
fighting
chat.
you? Wait, you're EU. We should just team up, right? Wait, are we?
I know. But
Can stream see this?
look,
On the last fucking poll.
I love each and
You
every one of you.
omitted me.
What
This
the
was
people want
rigged
to
from
see
the
right now
fucking
is some
start.
blood sports,
This was
right?
rigged from the
is the
fucking
strategy-
start.
Right now it's
I've been
blood sports.
perma-banned from
Me
this
as
fucking
conductor,
community for
Thank
2
God we have
years
like 7
when I
retards in
fucking
this.
criticized a
over each
rigger.
other.
And now the riggers are back and they're
Cinema.
fucking rigging.
also in
I was
this
omitted
episode.
from the last fucking poll because they fucking cheated me.
This vexes me.
This
I
vexes
didn't
me
even
too.
notice you were left off the last
I'm
poll,
also in
but
this
that's because the
episode.
poll was bad.
Do we have a moderator here? What's the question?
Is Ren Lux here? He's the one doing this. I'm just hanging out.
Yeah, I guess. Okay.
How
so
the
we'll,
fuck is this fair? This is literally fucking
sir,
unhinged.
You're,
This is a clear
you've made it.
fucking
By the way,
rig, and he's done it in plain
Is
fucking
this guy
sight.
part of the thing? Ren, why is this guy in here? Are you running this?
Yeah, because he was left off the last poll.
I'm
so
gonna
he's
start
here.
saying slurs if nobody asks me a question.
Are you
Can we
white?
get a question or something to start the
No.
conversation?
Okay. So I have a question. Do you guys all support the malaria raffle first?
No, fuck. Oh,
Uh,
we're going.
TRT0, do you support the malaria raffle?
I think I'm like the person who tried to use it the most, and I was told to stop at certain points. So that's certainly what I will bring back, at least like for skipping for a good amount of money.
Alright,
Like
Chacha, do you
maybe.
support it?
Well, I'd like to answer properly, Renlux. What the fuck?
What you just did.
No, I just said no, but I'd actually like to give a proper answer. I thought we were all just yelling.
Okay, you can give an answer.
Okay, so rich people shouldn't be able to dictate what we're watching in chat. I know there's a lot of broke N-words in chat, so I'd like to make it fair for everyone. So, no.
You mean when you say broke N-words, you mean N-words with the soft A, not the hard R, right?
Soft day.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not Quentin, so.
Sarky, do you support the malaria raffle?
I don't see how that's fucking relevant, and you're trying to fucking justify how you fucking.
Answer the question,
Alright.
bro.
Just
What
fucking
the
move,
fuck?
Do you support the malaria raffle?
I thought it was cool, but it wasn't my thing. That was, I think, Tommy's. So I wouldn't ever use it. It's Tommy's.
Okay. With that, we can return to the screaming match. Why do you guys think that?
Utanari, what do you think about the malaria raffle?
Oh, wait, you're here. Wait, what do you think about it?
So I see my role as a conductor as like facilitator of community and entertainment for DGG chat. So I look at DGG chat, I look at what the vibes are, and you know, if they're feeling up to it, hey man, I will play whatever they want.
So yes or no? What the fuck kind of answer?
Politician answer, farming answer.
Exactly.
Hello?
Look, the real answer is I was a lurker back then. I did not have an account and I did not pay enough attention to DGG chat to know whether or not it was loved, yes or no.
Okay, I want to give an idea and hope other candidates support it. And this is like part of my platform is that we have themed events and special events for chat. Like we can have a movie night only horror, like for
Well,
Halloween.
Temptation Island Thursday should happen too. So yes.
We should also bring TV shows for EU and or we can have like monthly genre night, only one genre movies and stuff like that.
I think
You
that's a
guys
good idea.
support that? Yeah, Fuda, you support
As long as there's no anime night, I'm good.
I mean, if people vote for it, why not?
No, even if people vote, I don't know.
If people vote, you won't allow it?
It shouldn't be a question that gets polled. It should like.
Why not?
Are we all
So we're gonna
pedophiles
rig
here
the
or what?
poll? So we're gonna rig the poll?
It just shouldn't show up. It shouldn't be.
Wait,
just
are you a
ask-
rigger?
What's a rig?
Here are the things that
What did you
you
call me,
show.
bro? What the fuck?
I mean, you heard me.
So wait, Tori,
Listen,
if-
it's
Oh, now
not
he's
it's not
fucking
black and
stealing my
white,
strategy.
right?
would they all just
Like
would you just
people,
ignore
Look,
them?
people
I probably have the
different
biggest-
things they want to see on different days.
Cock.
And you know, sometimes people are really in the mood for like a political movie, sometimes for a thriller. Sometimes they just want to, you know, laugh at really dumb 3 out of 10 IMDb romance comedy slop. And you know, maybe sometimes it's an anime movie. I personally don't like anime movies, but if I make a poll and people suggest it and
Bro.
people vote
Every
on
answer
it,
you give
and
is
I
just
don't wanna
yeah,
see it,
good one.
hey,
I'm
not the
yeah,
one
yeah,
saying this.
yeah, yeah.
Futanari,
No
bro.
personal opinion
Come
on
on.
anything, just whatever chat
Exactly.
wants.
Exactly.
Yeah, no zero personality. That's great.
Exactly.
You think
My
it's Torque?
look.
No,
my
put the
personality is in
mic
my
up to
memes,
DGG chat
in
at
the
least, so like
music,
that they can just
and in
answer
the
every
way I
fucking
interact with
question
chat.
that you
Every
ask to
single
narrate.
day, I make sure to dank wave every single chatter. I make sure to get in conversation with every single. That is my personality. If people watch the
You're a doorstep. That's your fucking
TFW No GF embed, they will see that there is a guy that is sympathetic to them, that likes.
Dude, I'm shocked. This level of delusion. Destiny versus Hassan, trial by combat. Whoever gets to the final round has to find Sam Hyde or Tech Down. Name one liberal creator Hassan hasn't doxed. I'll wait. Anyways, moving on to Hassan shouting out Reddit for defending him. Of course, his favorite platform. The most radical, unhinged, lefty, extremist platform to exist. He loves it. Hassan shouts out Reddit for becoming woke and defending him. Says he's been majorly vindicated.
Welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show. You daily dive into the news, and with it being Monday, there is a lot we have to talk about today, starting with this. Mark Maron, Shane Gillis, and Zach Woods are slamming this comedy festival in Saudi Arabia that a bunch of their fellow stand-ups are participating in, and we should talk about it. Because it's called the Riyadh Comedy Festival. It kicked off on Friday. It lasts through October 9th, and it has a massive lineup. You've got Pete Davidson, Bill Burr, Dave Chappelle, Whitney Cummings, Andrew Schultz, and Flagrant, Kevin Hart, Tom Segura, and the list just goes on and on. And you know, some have already gone on stage, some they still have sets upcoming, but they're all facing some backlash right now. Because Saudi Arabia, as you hopefully know, for quite a while has been criticized for its human rights abuses, like arresting journalists, exploited labor, executions for crimes like drug offenses, and way more. Like, it's literally about to be the anniversary of when Mohammed Bonesaw is believed to have killed Jamal Khashoggi. And in fact, just earlier this year, the nation's top court there executed a journalist who had been behind bars for over 7 years. And so with all this, last week you had Human Rights Watch issuing a statement arguing that the Saudi government is using the festival, quote, to deflect attention from its brutal repression of free speech and other pervasive human rights violations. And you had them then urging the performers to use their time at the festival to urge Saudi leaders to free unjustly detained journalists and activists so they're not laundering the government's reputation. Right, but also, it's not just activists and nonprofits who are slamming the comedians. I mean, you have tons of other comedians also speaking out. Right? You recently had comedian Mark Maron speaking on this.
I mean, the same guy that's going to pay them is the same guy that paid that guy to bonesaw Jamal Khashoggi and put him in a suitcase. But don't let that stop the yucks. It's going to be a good time. Full disclosure, I was not asked to perform at the Riyadh Comedy Festival, so it's kind of easy for me to take the high road on this one.
And actually, this whole thing goes back to July when you had comedian Shane Gillis saying he was offered the chance to perform in Saudi Arabia, but...
I think I'm going to pass.
Yeah. For the troops? Is it for the troops?
Not for the troops. It's for the Saudis.
For the Saudi princes?
Yeah, and everyone's like, yeah, you should do it. Everyone's doing it. It's like, for Saudis?
Yeah.
Weren't those the 9/11 guys?
And then Gillis later said that organizers doubled his pay offer, but he refused this significant amount of money so he could take a principled stand. Also, as far as like how much people were actually making for this, you had comedian Tim Dillon previously saying that he was going to do the fest because he was going to get $375,000 for doing one show. Right? He also claimed that some performers were offered as much as $1.6 million. But then Saudi Arabia apparently fired him from the gig over jokes that he made about forced labor in the country. And on that note, you had comedian Atsuko Okatsuka saying that she was offered the festival but turned it down and claimed that the gig came with a bunch of content restrictions. And with that, sharing a screenshot showing that artists aren't allowed to prepare material critical of Saudi Arabia, its royal family, or its government. With her then adding a lot of the you can't say anything anymore comedians are doing the festival. They had to adhere to censorship rules. And, you know, as all of this is playing out, we've seen some of the performers from the lineup defending their choice to go. Pete Davidson recently went on Theo Von's podcast and he said,
I've been getting a little bit of flack just because like my dad died 9/11, so they're like, how could you possibly go there? I just, you know, I get the routing and then I see the number and I go, I'll go.
Right, and so with all this, it's not surprising that the general backlash that we've seen are people calling them sellouts. Right, some saying they think it's ironic that some of the sort of free speech warriors are among the comedians performing in a country slammed for repressing free speech. You know, if you go to the comments of the top performers' Instagrams, you can see their fans calling them out. And then, you know, with this, as far as my opinion on the matter, I'm conflicted because there's a number of people involved in this that I'm like, okay, I'm not surprised. Right, a number of them are bag chaser bullshit artists that I was like, yeah, okay. And then also, whether you love them or hate them, you could look to people like Kevin Hart and you're like, oh, that motherfucker never saw a check that he didn't want to cash. Like, Kevin Hart would MC judicial amputations as long as it had enough zeros. And so I found myself more surprised, and I hate using the word disappointed because it's not like I'm his fucking daddy, but seeing Bill Burr there. And so overall with this, I end up just kind of wanting to know, like, what were any of the people involved here, as well as, you know, what were any of the people that were involved in the whitewashing that we've seen of Saudi Arabia media and other aspects thinking. And I think the closest thing that we've gotten to that was Nimesh Patel was previously involved in this and he ended up dropping out. He also then put out a very what felt like a passive aggressive TikTok where he seemed to feel like he was the victim of this situation, whereas he was also then trying to like make this false equivalency comparison to the United States and Saudi Arabia. And then in a follow-up video he made after that, it was even that was fucked up because he said if he had gone, it would have been essentially like 20% of the money that he would have made that year. And he shows a screenshot of his back and forth with his people where he's like, hey, I wouldn't do this thing if Netanyahu asked me. It feels like a moral thing. But then also in the same video, he was like, but if it was also like generational wealth, like it was money that would like genuinely change my life, I'd still probably do it. And so I don't know. I think for the rest of them, it's probably just a mixed bag of I don't care about the controversy. I'm just going for that bag. Maybe they're thinking safety in numbers or I don't know. But hey, as this comedy festival continues to move along, I gotta ask you, like, what are your thoughts around any of this? But then quickly, next up in the news, Trump, the president of the United States, shared and then deleted a seemingly AI-generated video showing a magic bed that cures all illnesses, which begs so many questions, though with this, right, it should be noted, it's not something that he made up, but it's actually a conspiracy theory that's been embraced by factions of QAnon. And the idea here is that there are these futuristic medical pods known as med beds that can miraculously cure every ailment and even regrow limbs. But for whatever reason, they're being kept from the American public by some combination of the government, liberals, the elite, and or big pharma. And so seemingly you had Trump playing into that by posting a video on Truth Social of what appeared to be an AI-generated Fox News segment of his daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, making a big announcement about med beds.
President Donald J. Trump has announced a historic new healthcare system, the launch of America's first medbed hospitals and a national medbed card for every citizen.
Every American will soon receive their own medbed card. With it,
So with this, right, it should be noted, it's not something that he made up, but it's actually a conspiracy theory that's been an AI-generated video. The president of the United States shared and then deleted a seemingly AI-generated video showing a magic bed that cures all illnesses, which begs so many questions, though with this, right, it should be noted, it's not something that he made up, but it's actually a conspiracy theory that's been embraced by factions of QAnon. And the idea here is that there are these futuristic medical pods known as med beds that can miraculously cure every ailment and even regrow limbs. But for whatever reason, they're being kept from the American public by some combination of the government, liberals, the elite, and or big pharma. And so seemingly you had Trump playing into that by posting a video on Truth Social of what appeared to be an AI-generated Fox News segment of his daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, making a big announcement about med beds.
President Donald J. Trump has announced a historic new healthcare system, the launch of America's first medbed hospitals and a national medbed card for every citizen.
every American will soon receive their own medbed card. With it, you'll have guaranteed access to our new hospitals led by the top doctors in the nation, equipped with the most advanced technology in the world. These facilities are safe, modern, and designed to restore every citizen to full health and strength. This is the beginning of a new era in American healthcare.
In this first phase, only a limited number of MedBed cards will be released. Registration details will be announced very soon.
And that absolutely wild, some would call it crazy video was reportedly on Trump's page for up to 12 hours before he deleted it. Right, you had Fox News having to go out and tell multiple outlets that the segment never actually aired on any of their channels or platforms. But as of recording, that's basically all we know about this whole bizarre situation. But it's still unclear where the video actually came from, why Trump posted it, and at least as of recording, the White House, they haven't responded to multiple requests for comment from media outlets. And in the meantime, with this, right, you've seen the conversation online basically being what you'd expect, right, many slamming Trump for sharing a conspiracy theory or just thinking that it's weird. Though also you have some saying that it's actually cruel for him to post this video while he and his party are making massive healthcare cuts. Right? Especially because some of his own followers genuinely believe that this is a real thing. And you had some saying things like, this comes as he prepares to let the enhanced ACA subsidies expire and is even willing to force a government shutdown to achieve it. And saying the result would be millions of Americans facing crushing premium hikes and the real possibility of losing their coverage. Right, with that, in reference to the fact that Senate Democrats have refused to back a spending bill to fund the government and avert a shutdown if it doesn't extend key Obamacare subsidies. But then next up in the news, the city of Portland, Oregon has been ravaged by war. At least that is, according to Donald Trump, who wrote on social media on Saturday. At the request of Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, I am directing Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and any of our ICE facilities under siege from attack by Antifa and other domestic terrorists. And adding, I am also authorizing full force if necessary. Now with that, it is not technically clear what Trump meant by full force, though you have a lot of people filling in the blanks there. And that, as you have the Pentagon saying in a statement simply that it was aware of the president's directive to mobilize military personnel to Portland. And that, as you had a departmental memo signed by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth reportedly indicating that 200 members of the Oregon National Guard will be called into federal service effective immediately for a period of 60 days. And of course, all of this, it begs the question, why? And well, Portland, it's long been a favorite target for Trump, especially since 2020 when tens of thousands of people there protested racial injustice following the murder of George Floyd. Right, and Trump, he sent hundreds of federal agents into the city with their stated purpose being protecting the federal courthouse and other federal property from vandalism. But a big thing is, this time around, we haven't seen anything close to that scale. What you've had for several months are pretty small groups of demonstrators, most nights no more than 24, reportedly, camping outside of a building used by ICE in southwest Portland. And actually, you've got the city threatening to take action against ICE for allegedly violating a conditional use permit for leasing the building that limits the number of detainees and length of time they can be held there. But in any case, clashes have occasionally broken out between the protesters and federal law enforcement at this building. And with that, you've got the New York Times reporting that the protesters chant and hold up signs and federal cars leave the building, sometimes even attempting to block the vehicles, but ultimately drawing little or no response during the day and early evening. Then they say that later in the evening, federal agents regularly leave the building to confront them and attempt to drive them away, with one protester saying they get violent, tear gas, batons, bear spray, rubber bullets, shields. And actually with that, you had a charter school renting space near the ICE facility saying they had to move out this fall, with them citing the heavy use of tear gas by federal agents and potential health risks for students. So then on the opposite side of this, you had the Trump administration attributing any violence to the protesters. And in fact, back in July, you had the Department of Homeland Security describing this ICE facility as being under siege and adding in a statement, rioters have attacked law enforcement officials, destroyed federal property, and have posted death threats at the facility. But in the face of all that, for the most part, Portland had stayed off of Trump's radar, with his attention mostly focused on cities like LA, Washington, D.C., and Chicago. That is until earlier this month when you had Fox News airing a report claiming to show protesters wreaking havoc outside of an ICE facility in Portland. But also, notably with that, you had footage of these small, isolated anti-ICE protests that have been taking place over the past few months, mixed in with a clip from the much larger 2020 protests, which apparently misled Trump about what was really happening right now. So then you had him saying in the Oval Office the next day that Portland hadn't been on his list of cities to send troops into before, but after watching television the previous night, he may have changed his mind.
Portland is unbelievable what's going on in Portland. The destruction of the city. Well, I'm going to look at it now because I didn't know that was still going on. This has been going on for years.
And then with that, you had him once again spreading the baseless conspiracy theory that these protesters were being paid.
These are paid terrorists, okay? These are paid agitators. These are professional. I watched that last night. I'm very good at this stuff. These are paid agitators. They get paid money by radical left groups, not radical right groups, radical left groups. And they get paid a lot of money.
Right, and that, of course, ties into his recent executive order declaring Antifa a domestic terrorist organization, right, a designation that notably doesn't actually exist under U.S. law. And that's, of course, before even mentioning that anti-fascism, like fascism itself, is a political ideology and not a specific organization. Right, but regardless, one of the things we've seen now is that these Trump threats, they've seemingly brought new life into the protests, with hundreds gathering outside of that ICE building last night. Right, and then also something else we've seen are state and local officials presenting a united front and objecting to the deployment of troops. So you had Governor Tina Kotek saying she learned of the president's declaration after waking up to the news on social media like everyone else. Also adding that she had spoken with Trump and Noam since then and made it very clear that the military is not needed in Portland.
In my conversations directly with President Trump and Secretary Noam, I have been abundantly clear with them that Portland and the state of Oregon believe in the rule of law, and we can manage our own local public safety needs. There is no insurrection, there is no threat to national security, and there is no need for military troops in our major city. Military service members should be dedicated to real emergencies.
You also had Kotek urging people in Portland to not take the bait from Trump, saying any property damage or violence of any kind will get us nowhere and will not be tolerate it. And then finally, you had her saying that she believed that Trump lacked the authority to deploy federal troops to Portland and that she was coordinating with the state attorney general to see what could be done. And so very quickly, we saw state and local officials suing the Trump administration for the planned National Guard deployment, and that complaint saying that Trump's characterization of Portland as a war-ravaged community is, quote, pure fiction, and adding that it appears that the president's false claims appear to be based on that single Fox News report that was broadcast earlier this month. And added, the protests contained to a small area near Portland's ICE facility have been successfully managed by local law enforcement and do not in any way constitute a rebellion or danger of a rebellion. So, we're gonna have to wait to see what happens with the lawsuit because, notably a federal judge in California, they ruled earlier this month that the administration acted illegally by deploying the Guard and the Marines to Los Angeles back in June. But of course, with that, getting a decision here, it could take a while, and in the meantime, a lot can happen. And then we've got more to talk about in just a minute, but first, let me say, have you ever felt like your bills are plotting against you? You pay one and somehow 3 more appear overnight like a surprise party you never asked for? Well, then your next move is PDS Debt, today's sponsor. The system's built to keep you stressed and stuck, and PDS Debt, it helps you break free and take control of your finances. Personal loans handled, credit cards covered, medical bills, they've got it all under control. They're A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau and have thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot, right? It's credibility you can trust. No minimum credit score, no judgment, just a personalized plan designed by real humans who understand your situation. And hundreds of thousands of people have already regained control of their money with PDS Debt. Real results, not marketing. And they've got you, guiding your every step, helping you climb out, take control, and rebuild your financial life. Feels like a cheat code for your money, legal and effective. If I was where I used to be, PDS Debt's where I'd go right now. And hey, you're just 30 seconds away from starting your journey to be debt-free. So get your free assessment and find the best option for you right now at pdsdebt.com/DeFranco. That's pdsdebt.com/DeFranco, or that QR code's on screen. Just scan it and take the first step today. But then next up in the news, we need to talk about Donald Trump now securing a criminal indictment against former FBI Director James Comey. And Comey was fired by Trump back in 2017, and he's since become a prominent critic of the president. And also, we're going to have to talk about Christopher Wray, who Trump appointed to replace Comey, but then quickly soured on due to his perceived lack of loyalty. Starting with Comey, you had a grand jury indicting him on Thursday. And that coming only a few days after Trump publicly chided Attorney General Pam Bondi for not moving fast enough to prosecute Comey and the president's other political enemies. He forced out the attorney in charge of the district investigating Comey and installed his personal lawyer, Lindsay Halligan, who has no experience as a prosecutor, in the position. And with that, you've had the New York Times reporting that the filing of the indictment came over the objection of career prosecutors who found insufficient evidence to support charges but were overruled by Halligan. And in fact, that 2-page indictment, it was only signed by Halligan when it's very normal for these firings to be endorsed by multiple prosecutors who've been involved in gathering evidence in the case. What you had in the end there was 14 of the 23 grand jurors who heard the presentation of charges voting to indict Comey, just narrowly clearing that 12-vote threshold. And specifically, what you saw was they decided that prosecutors had probable cause to bring 1 count of making a false statement to Congress and 1 count of obstruction of a congressional proceeding. Right, and both of those counts, they relate to Comey's testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee in 2020. The first alleges that Comey lied when he told the committee that he hadn't authorized someone at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports regarding an investigation into Person 1, which appears to be a reference to Hillary Clinton. And then the second, it alleges that Comey did corruptly endeavor to influence, obstruct, and impede the committee by making false statements. Right, and with that, Halligan also tried to get the grand jury to indict Comey on a second false statement charge, but that one got rejected. Still, Comey faces up to 5 years in prison if convicted. Though notably, with this, you've got a number of legal experts saying that this case is going to be difficult to prove, and it could even get thrown out of court, and they're pointing to Trump's own statements as evidence of this being vindictive prosecution. Right, and so with all this, you're seeing several current and former Justice Department officials condemning the decision to file charges on what they say is weak evidence. You also have Democratic politicians and rights groups blasting the move. Or you've got House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, for example, arguing that the indictment is a disgraceful attack on the rule of law and saying that Donald Trump and his sycophants in the Department of Justice are completely and totally out of control. You also had a top figure at the ACLU calling the indictment a grotesque abuse of presidential power and adding that Trump has yet again proven his disdain for the principles that have actually made America great. And then, as far as Comey, he posted a video statement on social media saying that he was innocent and he welcomed a trial.
My family and I have known for years that there are costs to standing up to Donald Trump, but we couldn't imagine ourselves living any other way. We will not live on our knees, and you shouldn't either.
On the other side of this, right, with the Trump administration, you had Bondi claiming no one is above the law and arguing. Today's indictment reflects this Department of Justice's commitment to holding those who abuse positions of power accountable for misleading the American public. You then also had Trump celebrating the news in a post on Truth Social, calling Comey one of the worst human beings this country has ever been exposed to, and claiming he's now at the beginning of being held responsible for his crimes against our nation. And all of this is, he appeared to suggest that Comey will not be the last to be prosecuted.
It's not a list, but I think there'll be others. I mean, they're corrupt. These were corrupt, radical left Democrats, because Comey essentially was he's worse than a Democrat. I would say the Democrats are better than Comey, but no, there'll be others. Look, it was That's my opinion. They weaponized the Justice Department like nobody in history. What they've done is terrible. And so I hope there are others, because you can't let this happen to a country.
And so with all that, it wasn't long before you had Trump setting his sights on Comey's successor, Christopher Wray. With this seemingly being driven by recent reports in right-wing media that more than 200 plainclothes FBI agents were present at the Capitol on January 6th, which is something that a number of people have pointed to as evidence of this whole thing being an inside job aimed at framing and prosecuting Trump supporters. And while many have labeled those folks as conspiracy theorists, among them appeared to be Donald Trump himself. Because on Saturday, you had Trump posting on social media that the FBI had secretly placed 274 FBI agents into the crowd just prior to and during the January 6th hoax, claiming this is different from what director Christopher Wray stated over and over again, saying they were probably acting as agitators and insurrectionists, but certainly not as law enforcement officials. And adding, Christopher Wray, the then director of the FBI has some major explaining to do. That's 2 in a row, Comey and Wray, who got caught lying with our great country at stake. We can never let this happen to America again. But with that, as far as what we know, you had the Justice Department Inspector General already finding that there's no evidence that undercover agents were in the crowd when the riot broke out, or saying that there were 26 confidential human sources, but 1, they're not agents or employees of the FBI, and 2, according to the Inspector General's report, they didn't tell the Bureau of their plans to attend, and none were instructed to violate any laws or participate in the riot. And then you did actually have FBI personnel on the scene, but only after the riot had already broken out and at the request of the Capitol Police, or with some also responding to pipe bombs placed near the Democratic National Committee and Republican National Committee headquarters the night before. You even had current FBI Director Kash Patel acknowledging this on Fox News over the weekend, right, explaining that agents had been sent to the Capitol for crowd control purposes after the riot was already underway. But with that, you still had Patel arguing that this was not the proper role of FBI agents and pointing to Wray's past refusal to disclose if agents or sources were embedded within the crowd. But there with that, you have many saying it's not clear that Wray actually lied to Congress, right, noting in 2023 he very clearly told lawmakers that the violence at the Capitol was not part of some operation orchestrated by the FBI, but he refused to disclose if any agents or sources were embedded within the crowd. But still, you had Trump doubling down on this yesterday, saying he would think the Justice Department is investigating Wray. But for now, we're gonna have to wait to see what happens with Comey and Wray, though it's very likely it doesn't end with them. But then next up, in the news, 4 deadly mass shootings happened in this country over the weekend, and it's left at least 10 dead and many more injured. Right, and so we'll start in Grand Blanc Township in Michigan, a roughly 8,000 person community just outside of Flint and roughly 50 miles from Detroit. And at around 10:30 yesterday morning, a truck reportedly rammed through the doors of a local Mormon church before the driver got out and started shooting an assault rifle at the hundreds of people inside the church as they ran away. Right, and then a fire broke out, with local police saying that it was started intentionally by the gunman who used gasoline as an accelerant, and police saying that they also found explosive devices. Right, and as far as the shooter, he was later identified as a 40-year-old former Marine and veteran of the Iraq War, and he was shot and killed by police on the scene. And so with his death, the total number dead reached 5, with 2 churchgoers being shot and another 2 bodies being pulled from the building after the fire. Right, and that is another 8 people were injured, 7 of those in stable condition, though 1 remains critical. Now with this, the police, they haven't released names of the victims as I'm recording this. They also warned that there may be more victims revealed as the investigation continues, with the local chief of police saying, "We do believe that there were people up there that were near that fire and they were unable to get out of the church." And adding, "We do believe we will find additional victims once we're able to search that, once there are no signs of a fire reignited." And also regarding investigations, you have the FBI saying that they're investigating this as a targeted act of violence, though right now a motive is yet to be determined. And so, this is something we're gonna have to keep our eyes on, especially as most of the community, they were caught wildly off guard by one of their own doing something like this. Right, as far as what we know, the shooter reportedly graduated from a nearby high school in 2004 before joining the Marines and having what was described as a stellar military career during the 4 years that he served. You also had a former high school classmate saying he was an avid hunter who he regularly regularly saw around town, even running into him at the gym earlier in the week. Right, that classmate saying he was happy to see me, he just seemed normal. Right, and that was something that was echoed by his former landlady and his neighbors. But then also with this, you've had a number of people sharing a photo that appears to be the shooter in a Trump 2020 shirt that's been circulating online. Right, and that is, there's also reporting from the Daily Beast saying that there was, as of June of this year, a pro-Trump sign outside of his house. You also have this local consultant on voter and petition information saying that the shooter had previously signed 2 petitions, one to repeal Governor Gretchen Whitmer's COVID mandates and one to outlaw abortion in the state, all of which has led to people saying numerous things online, right? Some trying to fill in the blanks as to the motive of why he would do this, right? And others saying this is why we're seeing a drastically different reaction from the right on this situation. You know, with all that, like I always kind of try to stress in moments like this, I think it's important to see as things are developing and information's coming in to see what comes from the investigation, right? And with that, you have people noting that the shooter wasn't publicly registered to either party, and we don't have any concrete information on what his connection to the church was at this point. The one that noted this being a church, we've seen a lot of big names speaking out against violence in places of worship in general. In that, including Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who promised to create a task force dedicated to protecting places of worship, writing on X, "The escalation of violent attacks against people and places of faith is heinous and must end." Now with that, as far as wider reactions, you had several politicians chiming in to condemn the violence, praise first responders, and of course, offer thoughts and prayers. We also saw statements from Vice President J.D. Vance and FBI Director Kash Patel calling the shooting horrific and awful. You also had Trump promising that his administration would keep the public posted with updates and saying this epidemic of violence in our country must end immediately. But also, we're not done here, because like I said, there were 4 mass shootings this weekend. So the next one we're talking about happened in North Carolina, right? Less than 14 hours before the shooting in Michigan, a gunman fired on an open-air dockfront bar in Southport from his boat on the water. And there, 3 people were killed and another 5 were wounded before the shooter drove his boat away from the bar toward the intracoastal waterway. So there, within about 30 minutes, he was spotted by the U.S. Coast Guard and arrested. And the shooter then revealed to be a 40-year-old decorated combat veteran who was awarded the Purple Heart for his service in Iraq during 2005 and 2006. And according to the police, this was a highly premeditated attack that he carried out on his own. Now, as for the victims, their names, they haven't been released yet, but we do know that one of those injured isn't doing well, with the police saying that they are clinging for their life. Also, while the motive here is still under investigation, you had the local police chief saying that the shooter is claiming to have PTSD after being injured in the line of duty during his time in Iraq. And you also had the chief going on to say that they were previously aware of this man, and he reportedly filed lawsuits against the city of Southport and the police department before. But with that, the district attorney added there was, quote, nothing significant in his past which would give us any indication that he was capable of such horror. But then from there, we have to go further south and talk about Texas, where 2 people were killed and several more injured at a shooting at the Kickapoo Lucky Eagle Casino. And the shooting there reportedly happened just after midnight Saturday night when a raffle drew a large crowd to the casino. The shooter there firing on that crowd and then fleeing the scene, with his car then being later tracked down by multiple law enforcement agencies before he was taken into custody. Right in there, you had the local sheriff's department identifying the shooter as a 34-year-old former member of the National Guard. And while that investigation is still ongoing, we do know who at least one of the victims was, a retired U.S. Customs and Border Protection agent named Marcus Antley, with the local mayor saying that Antley was a beloved community member who, quote, will be remembered not only for his career, but also for his generosity, leadership, and the lasting friendships he built. But then the last place we'll talk about here is New Orleans, where 1 woman was killed and another 3 people were injured in a shooting on Bourbon Street. Because just before 2:30 on Sunday morning, you had police responding to reports of gunfire. Right when they arrived, they found 3 victims, 1 woman who was declared dead at the scene, another injured woman, another injured man, and they later found another victim at a nearby intersection who had been grazed by one of the shots fired and was taken to the hospital with the other 2 injured victims. Right, and currently with this shooting, the police are still looking for the shooter and trying to determine motive. But they also released stills to the public looking for information about an unidentified man that they say is a suspect in the case. Right, the police also confirming that the shooting was caught on camera.
Auf das ich gestern reagiert habe von Alpelasi, wollte ich jetzt hier nochmal drauf reagieren. Und zwar, warum wir aufhören müssen, True Crime zu feiern. Nachdem ich gestern meine erste Reaction dazu gemacht habe, hat der sie direkt eingehakt und gesagt, Stopp!
Eine Frau aus Sachsen-Anhalt war
Lasst ein Like, Abo, Kommentar da.
fasziniert von True Crime und hat dann einen Mann getötet, in der Hoffnung, als Serienmörderin in Erinnerung zu bleiben. Sie wollte das Gleiche...
Stell dir vor, du schaffst da nur einen Mord und wirst erwischt, das ist halt schon peinlich. Na, allein deswegen sollte die Strafe schon doppelt so hoch sein.
Triumphgefühl wie ihre Vorbilder aus den Medien spüren und dachte tatsächlich, es würde mehr Spaß machen. Doch diese
Alter, ey, Junge.
Dieses Gefühl kam nicht und stattdessen muss sie jetzt lebenslänglich ins Gefängnis. Denn während Serienmörder zum Vorbild werden, wird True Crime als Genre so beliebt wie noch nie. Millionen von Menschen hören True Crime
Junge.
Podcasts, schauen Netflix-Dokus oder scrollen durch TikTok-Videos über Mordfälle. Aber irgendwas daran hat mich im Laufe der Jahre irgendwie mehr und mehr daran gestört. Ich meine, stell dir vor, ein Familienmitglied wurde
Wie lange machst du noch? Boah, bei der Lunge 10 Jahre oder so.
Ist ermordet und dann scrollst du durch TikTok und siehst, wie irgendwelche True Crime Fans irgendwelche Fun Compilations darüber machen. Denn True Crime ist in vielen Fällen
Was stand da? Ich habe mich auf was anderes konzentriert,
kein
glaube ich.
Journalismus mehr, sondern ein Milliardengeschäft, in dem Mord nicht erklärt, sondern ausgeschlachtet wird.
So I think we need to acknowledge that you watching it goes way beyond. I like true crime because it's informative. Admit that the trauma of others is entertainment to you and go.
True Crime ist übrigens nichts Neues und gibt...
Aber ich muss sagen, verfolgt ihr True Crime? Das Einzige, was ich tatsächlich da gucke, ist, oder höre ich immer zum Einschlafen, Medical Detectives. Das ist ja auch True Crime, ne? Aber da zum Beispiel finde ich es halt einfach immer so mega faszinierend, wie die Polizei halt so arbeitet irgendwie, ne? Ich finde das so krass, keine Ahnung, die haben halt irgendwie so ein kleines Haar oder keine Ahnung, haben dann so ein Blatt, Alter, und dann, keine Ahnung, schicken die das in irgendeine forensische Ding und dann finden die heraus, ja, der Baum, der steht ungefähr da und da war noch Reifenspuren und dadurch, keine Ahnung, haben wir den Täter dann erwischt. Aber klar, es gibt natürlich auch viele True Crime Sachen, die sich irgendwie mehr vielleicht mit dem Täter oder sowas halt beschäftigen.
Das ist eigentlich schon seit dem 16. Jahrhundert, denn damals wurden Sensationsschriften über Mordfälle verbreitet, voll mit reißerischen Details, die ganze Städte in Aufregung versetzt haben. Und später haben dann Zeitungen, Bücher und Kriminalmagazine dieses Muster aufgegriffen. 2014 bringt dann ein Podcast das Genre endgültig in den Mainstream, nämlich Serial. Der Podcast wird zum weltweiten Hype und geht in die Geschichte von iTunes ein, weil noch nie zuvor so schnell 5 Millionen Streams und Downloads erreicht wurden. Und mittlerweile ist True Crime überall. Allein in Deutschland zum Beispiel sind unter den 10
Na gut, solange man halt nicht den Da Vinci macht und nach irgendeiner Leiche suchen geht oder so, finde ich, kann man...
beliebtesten Podcasts.
Oh, das sind gerade die 10 beliebtesten in Deutschland, oder was? Ich gehe mal hier zur Seite, dann sehen wir das. Lanz und Brecht, Verbrechen, Kurt Krömer.
2024 allein 4 davon True Crime Podcasts.
Ist nicht der Podcast von Felix Lobrecht so groß?
Und das Publikum ist größtenteils weiblich. Und ich checke natürlich schon, warum man sich das so gerne reinzieht. Denn True Crime gibt einem einen Nervenkitzel in einem geschützten Rahmen. Es ist eigentlich wie eine Geisterbahn. Wir wollen uns gruseln, aber wir wissen gleichzeitig, dass wir sicher sind. Also wie ein Abenteuer im Safe Space.
Boah, Digga, ich hab das manchmal, wenn ich so... Kennt ihr das? Ihr schlaft so ein und also träumt irgendwas komisch und werdet halt wieder wach und dann, wenn ihr kurz davor seid einzuschlafen, träumt ihr irgendwie schon, aber so super realistisch. Digga, ich kann manchmal, wenn ich alleine bin, einfach nicht Medical Detectives zum Einschlafen hören. Ich bin da mal irgendwie aufgewacht dann irgendwie währenddessen und hatte dann so das Gefühl, dass irgendwer einbricht oder so und ich wollte runtergehen, um nochmal zu gucken, ob ich die Tür abgeschlossen habe. Und da war ich irgendwie in so einem Halbschlaf, wo ich so das Gefühl hatte, dass ich halt aufstehe und ich bin irgendwie ans Fenster gegangen und da war da irgendwie so ein, ist da so ein Auto irgendwie vorgefahren und der hat dann irgendwie so eine Leiter an mein Fenster gestellt und ist so hochgeklettert, aber so richtig schnell und ich habe mich einfach todeserschreckt, Alter. Junge, wirklich, dieses so halb einschlafen, das habe ich dann irgendwie auch so 3-4 Mal hintereinander, boah, es ist so gruselig, Alter.
Auch ein Abenteuer für mich war meine Skincare-Journey. Mit Anfang 20 zum Beispiel habe ich mich lediglich mit Abschminktüchern abgeschminkt und habe mich dann gewundert, warum meine Haut so schlecht war. Naja, ich persönlich brauch's bei der Formel und das mit meiner Farbe dessen soll und du bekommst kannst Rabatt ist.
Wenn aus wahren Verbrechen Warte, wenn aus wahren Verbrechen Oh, Digga, Junge, heftiger Titel, aber Bro, Junge, der muss mal ein bisschen um die Ecke denken.
True Crime ist mittlerweile vor allem
Lass das Video nicht Kollega sehen.
geworden, nämlich ein riesiges Geschäft. Medienhäuser verkaufen Podcasts, Serien und Magazine. Dazu gibt's Live-Tourneen, Merch und sogar einen True Crime Adventskalender.
Digga, was? Mit Leo und Lynn, eine Bewertung, 2 Sterne, top.
MDR Investigativ war zum Beispiel auf der Live-Show vom ehemaligen Podcast Weird Crimes mit 10.000 Menschen und dort wurde dann einfach mal ganz unkritisch eine Täterin auf die Bühne geholt.
Sie kommt tatsächlich auf die Bühne, die Täterin von damals. Die Halle bebt.
Und heute hier live im Stadion, meine Freunde. 4 Morde, 3 Kinder, eine Frau und das Ganze nur an einem Wochenende. Macht jetzt Applaus für Person XY. Woo! Digga, Junge, was ist das, Alter? Ey?
Angefeuert von dieser. Die Moderatorinnen begrüßen Sheila wie einen Star, umarmen sie innig. Gute Karten für ein kritisches Interview eigentlich.
Ines, ich habe Sheila vorher gefragt,
Wir dürfen alles fragen, was wir wollen.
Jetzt noch nicht ganz auf die Kette. Da kommt ja einfach mal eine Frau auf die Bühne, die zu 10 Jahren Haft verurteilt wurde, wegen dem Terroranschlag auf 750 Leute. Und wird mit dem Superstar-Applaus gefragt.
Digga, das okay, sowas, das wusste ich gar nicht, Alter, aber das ist halt schon wirklich krank, ne?
Es kommt einfach keine kritische Frage, sie wird geherzt auf der Bühne, dass ich echt so ein bisschen Spaß.
Stell dir vor, du wirst umgebracht von einem Serienkiller und dein Mörder kommt in der Top 10 Serienkiller mit Aura und irgendwelche Frauen schreiben in die Kommentare, warum ist er Loki? Ja, Mann,
das so in puncto Täterkult vor 10.000 Leuten.
Mord wird irgendwie plötzlich zum Produkt und die Betroffenen
also sich gar nicht selber ausgedacht, peinlich.
rutschen dabei schnell in den Hintergrund. Echte Fälle werden dann einfach nur guter Content und im schlimmsten Fall retraumatisiert man sogar die Betroffenen.
The families have already said that the Netflix series Dahmer has re-traumatized them.
Natürlich gibt es auch Opfer von Verbrechen, die wirklich selbst möchten, dass ihre Geschichte erzählt wird. Das ist zum Beispiel oft der Fall, wenn es sich um Cold Cases handelt, also um ungelöste Kriminalfälle, die damit nochmal neu aufgerollt werden. Aber es gibt eben auch die andere Seite, denn Opferverbände berichten davon, dass die Betroffenen oft gar nicht eingebunden werden. Viele erfahren dann zufällig, dass ihre Geschichte plötzlich in einem Podcast oder in einer Zeitschrift auftaucht, oft ohne vorher gefragt zu werden.
Dann können Leute retraumatisiert werden und dann können True Crime Podcasts sozusagen auf dem Rücken vom Leid fremder Menschen Geld verdienen und wenn sie involviert gewesen wären, dann würden, glaube ich, auch ganz andere Produkte entstehen und wir würden vielleicht auch viel mehr lernen.
So schreibt ein Nutzer der Redaktion des
Das ist eigentlich ein sehr, sehr guter Punkt, muss man halt sagen, ne?
Weißen Rings, nachdem sie nach Meinungen gefragt haben, Folgendes. Als Angehöriger ist man traumatisiert und möchte nicht hören, wie spannend ein Fall ist. Nein, es ist das reale Schicksal eines Menschen, seiner Familie, seiner Angehörigen und seiner Freunde. Und dann geht man auf Netflix und das Ganze wird unterbettet mit spannender Musik, fesselndes Storytelling, damit wir mit Popcorn vom Fernseher unsere Abendunterhaltung haben. Zumal die True Crime Stories auch unser Bild von Kriminalität verzerrt.
Und wenn dann aber Podcast...
Ja, also keine Ahnung, ich versuche irgendwie dagegen zu argumentieren irgendwie, aber es gibt nichts, ne? Es ist schon wirklich widerlich. Na, vor allem halt für die, hier, wie heißt das? Nicht Zurückgebliebenen, für die Angehörigen und so weiter. Die dann halt, keine Ahnung, dann werden irgendwelche Fälle irgendwie hochgeholt und ja, es ist irgendwie schon mega ekelhaft, ne, wenn dann irgendwie gesagt wird, ja, und mega spannend, was da passiert ist, ne, und boah, das war so krass und dann hat der das gemacht und das wird halt alles irgendwie halt wieder hochgeholt, ne. Deswegen, ich weiß nicht, also wie gesagt, ich höre ja immer Medical Detectives und da haben die ja immer noch irgendwie die Familie oder Hinterbliebenen oder so, die da halt interviewt werden. Deswegen gehe ich mal davon aus, dass die halt auch Fälle nehmen, wo das halt dann noch irgendwie halt abgesprochen ist. Weiß ich nicht, jetzt vielleicht nicht bei jedem, ne? Aber oftmals sind dann da ja wirklich halt noch irgendwelche Leute, die da selber dann nochmal was zu, die da selber dann nochmal so darüber reden. Ne? Aber teilweise, also meine Freundin hat auch mal diesen Podcast von Vis-a-vis und so gehört und ja, das wirkte schon so sehr, ja, was heißt jetzt pushend ist das falsche Wort, aber es wurde so, ja, der Täter wohl vergöttert ist auch das falsche Wort, aber es wurde schon so sehr, irgendwie nicht so kritisch drüber berichtet, so wisst ihr, wie ich meine, so, da wie als wenn man so einen Kult startet, würde ich halt sagen, ne, so kam das halt irgendwie.
Ein Podcast von einem fremden Mann spricht, der hinterm Busch hervorspringt und mich auf dem Nachhauseweg vergewaltigt. Diese Fälle gibt es definitiv, aber in der Regel ist die größte Gefahr, gerade für uns Frauen, halt der eigene Partner, die eigenen vier Wände, die eigene Familie.
Denn der gefährlichste Ort für Frauen ist nicht der dunkle Park, sondern das Zuhause.
The biggest threats to women's lives, in order, are their romantic partners, then their family.
Zum Glück bin ich nicht der romantische, Alter.
Then their friends, then their acquaintances, and very lastly, like dead last, is strangers.
Aber solche Fälle sind oft nicht spannend genug. Der Spannungsbogen funktioniert nämlich am besten, wenn unsere Urängste provoziert werden. Also der unbekannte Täter im Dunkeln, der Serienmörder. Das befriedigt nämlich unseren Voyeurismus und gibt uns das Gefühl, dass es uns
Ach, da mal Badewanne sein, ey.
oder unsere Freundin treffen könnte. Kein Wunder also, dass rund 75% aller Podcasts von Tötungsdelikten handeln, obwohl sie laut Kriminalstatistik nur 0,1% aller Verbrechen ausmachen.
Ja, okay, safe. Aber ich sag mal, wenn du so einen Podcast machst, du willst ja auch, dass Leute das halt sehen, ne? Und ich sag mal, wenn du jetzt sagst, ja, und dann hat Hans 46 ist dann tatsächlich in den Supermarkt gegangen und weißt du, was er dann gemacht hat? Nee, was hat er gemacht? Also, Digga, ne, er hat so Sachen in seinen Korb gelegt, ne? Das war richtig krass, so, ne, so Alltagssachen, ne? So eine Salami-Pizza und Toilettenpapier und dann hat er sich noch ein Buch eingepackt, ne? Und dann, Bro, du wirst nicht drauf klarkommen, ist er einfach zu der Selbstbedienungskasse gegangen und hat die Pizza nicht gescannt. Nein, was wirklich? Ja, und dann Dann hat er versucht rauszugehen und wurde erwischt. Und wurde dann verurteilt zu einer Geldstrafe von 10 Tagessätzen mal 10 Euro. Wow, heftig, Digga. Bro, krass.
Und unser Bild von
Das würde sich ja keiner angucken, ne?
Kriminalität wird dadurch massiv verzerrt. Denn das, was uns im Alltag viel häufiger betrifft, also häusliche Gewalt, Betrug, Diebstahl, spielt in True Crime kaum eine Rolle. Und da stellt sich dann eben die Frage, wie viel dient hier wirklich der Aufklärung und wie viel der Unterhaltung? Denn viele
Es
sagen,
ist halt nur Unterhaltung. Ne? So, da hat auch einer reingeschrieben, ich meine, ich vergleiche das jetzt einfach mal mit Medical Detectives, weil ich das halt wirklich aktiv höre, so. Na, da hat auch einer reingeschrieben, ne, du hast Experten, die dir wirklich Wissen mitgeben und so weiter, ne, damit du es beim nächsten Mal dann selber besser machen kannst, so. Na, und True Crime, da geht es halt nicht wirklich um Aufarbeitung, Sensibilisierung oder sonst irgendwas. Da wird halt einfach der Fall nochmal so erklärt, ne, und es wird halt versucht, so unterhaltsam und spannend wie möglich zu machen, dass man damit halt eventuell dem Opfer ins Gesicht spuckt oder den Hinterbliebenen. Das ist halt erstmal zweitrangig, ne, worum es halt einfach geht, ist, dass sich das halt gut geklickt wird, dass man einen geilen Spannungsbogen hat und ja, dass man das halt ja gut macht, ne. Wie der Maschseemörder, der wird doch auch gefeiert, der macht TikTok und vertreibt Merch über seinen Mord. Ja, safe, Digga, das ist halt sowas von absolut widerwärtig auch, ne. Da wollte ich vielleicht auch nochmal ein Video zu machen, aber ich habe keine Lust, abgestochen zu werden, ne. Der hat irgendwie so eine Frau halt getötet am Maschsee in Hannover und der kam jetzt halt wieder raus und der will irgendwie die ganze Zeit mit, ich glaube, dem Sohn irgendwie noch reden und so weiter. Der macht die ganze Zeit irgendwelche kruden TikToks. Der hat jetzt irgendwie auch so richtig ekelhaften Merch und so weiter rausgebracht. Ne, versucht sich da komplett zu vermarkten, dass der Typ nicht irgendwie als Gefahr für die Gesellschaft gesehen wird. Kann ich ehrlicherweise wirklich überhaupt nicht nachvollziehen.
True Crime, um sensibilisiert zu werden oder etwas über Psychologie und Justiz zu lernen. Und ja, man kriegt auf jeden Fall Einblicke in die Ermittlungsarbeit der Polizei und in die Psychologie von Tätern und Opfern. Aber oft überwiegt eben die Unterhaltung.
Die meisten True Crime Podcasts werden halt in irgendwelchen Wohnzimmern aufgenommen und da findet keine Aufklärungsarbeit statt.
Ja.
Da wird unterhalten, da werden sich gegenseitig Fälle erzählt, im kleinsten Detail.
Denn in True Crime Formaten geht es selten um wissenschaftliche Aufarbeitung. Stattdessen werden längst abgeschlossene Fälle noch einmal ausgeschlachtet als Thriller zwischendurch. Medienforscher nennen das sensationalistische Wiederholung. Also Geschichten, die nur noch mal erzählt werden, weil sie spannend klingen und nicht, weil sie irgendeinen gesellschaftlichen Nutzen haben. Das ist keine Sensibilisierung, das ist Unterhaltung. Und man muss sich natürlich auch fragen, wie viel Sensibilisierung uns überhaupt gut tut. Denn besonders Frauen hören True Crime oft mit dem Motiv Defensive Vigilance.
Frauen sorgen sich mehr um Gewalt, um Verbrechen, konsumieren deshalb mehr True Crime, weil sie lernen wollen, mit diesen Ängsten und Sorgen umzugehen.
Also wie eine Art
Frauen.
mentale Selbstverteidigung. Und ja, einerseits führt das dazu, dass wir aufmerksamer auf unsere Umwelt achten, aber andererseits kann das auch
Aber ich
dazu...
weiß nicht, also sorgt das wirklich dafür, dass man irgendwie aufmerksamer ist bei sowas? Weil, keine Ahnung, also ich weiß ja nicht, wie das jetzt bei anderen Leuten halt so ist, aber ich höre das halt und am nächsten Tag habe ich halt sowieso wieder alles vergessen, ne? Und ich meine, wenn du jetzt draußen rumläufst oder so, dann wirst du ja bestimmt nicht denken so, warte, das ist wie in diesem True Crime Podcast.
dass wir so mehr Ängste entwickeln oder sogar paranoid werden.
Ich werde dadurch nicht vor Kriminalität geschützt. Im Gegenteil, vor allem habe ich das Gefühl, überall sind eigentlich nur Menschen, die darauf warten, mich umzubringen.
Aber man muss natürlich an dieser Stelle auch sagen, Disclaimer, Disclaimer, nur weil jemand True Crime Fan ist, wird er nicht automatisch zum Verbrecher und es ist auch nicht zwingend negativ für die mentale Gesundheit.
Also die True Crime Fans von heute sind nicht die Psychopathen, Psychopathinnen von morgen.
Insgesamt aber kann der Überkonsum von True Crime eben psychologische Effekte auf manche Menschen haben.
My anxiety and honestly my mental health overall improved so much when I stopped watching true crime before bed. And that is like an insane thing to do. Like, it is not a normal thing to fall asleep and watch for hours stories of people being like violently, brutally, and like heinously unalive. That is not a normal thing. Y'all normalize it, but that does not make it a normal thing.
Und True Crime hat...
Ja, deswegen höre ich zum Einschlafen auch immer die deutsche Geschichte. Ich weiß nicht, ob man das heutzutage noch sagen darf. Wenn wir hier zum Start des Heiligen Römischen Reiches und so weiter, 800 bis 1600.
Nicht nur einen Einfluss auf ihre Konsumenten, sondern auch auf die Ermittlungen.
Wenn die Öffentlichkeit mitermittelt.
Denn True Crime kann in der Tat, ihr checkt, weil Tat, helfen, Fälle zu lösen.
Man kann mit True Crime Fälle lösen, wenn man das richtig anstellt. Und das ist ja auch schon passiert. Aktenzeichen XY hat eine Trefferquote, eine Aufklärungsquote von fast 50%.
Digga, was? Jo, Digga, ich hätte jetzt gedacht, keine Ahnung, so 5% oder 10% oder so. 50?
Das heißt, fast jeder zweite Fall wird gelöst durch die Mithilfe von Zuschauern, durch Experten, die sich da melden, aber vor allen Dingen auch Zeugen.
Und zwar auch mit Hilfe von Hobbydetektiven wie im Fall Gabby Petito. Die 22-Jährige wollte damals als Vanlife-Creatorin...
Da haben wir auch schon mal ein Video über die gesehen, oder? Habe ich mir das alleine angeguckt? Ich kenne die. Oder gibt es da eine Netflix-Doku von?
...durchstarten und ist 2021 während des Roadtrips mit ihrem Verlobten Brian Laundrie spurlos verschwunden. Der Fall ging super schnell viral, nicht nur in den klassischen Medien, sondern vor allem auf TikTok. Tausende User durchsuchten ihre Instagram-Posts, erstellten Videos mit angeblichen Hinweisen und diskutierten, wer schuldig sein könnte.
Personen werden durch die Plattform auf Gabbys Fall aufmerksam, melden sich beim FBI, um dabei zu helfen, den Zeitrahmen davon, wann Gabby und Brian wo waren, besser zu ermitteln.
Und durch die Viralität ihres Falles konnten tatsächlich nützliche Hinweise gefunden werden, aber nicht immer ist das Einmischen des Internets in allen Fällen gut. Denn 2022 sind in Idaho 4 College-Studenten ermordet worden. Auf TikTok verbreitete dann eine selbsternannte True-Crime-Ermittlerin tagelang Videos, in denen sie behauptet hat, eine Professorin sei die Täterin. Die Frau wurde dann öffentlich diffamiert, obwohl es keine Beweise gab. Später hat die Professorin dann auch gegen die TikTokerin geklagt. Auf Reddit, TikTok oder in Facebook-Gruppen entstehen ganze Communities, die Fälle mitermitteln. Wie zum Beispiel in der berühmten Netflix-Doku Don't Fuck with Cats. Sie erzählt...
Darf man eigentlich überhaupt noch irgendwas?
Die Geschichte einer Facebook-Gruppe, die einen Mann jagt, nachdem er grausame Videos online stellt, wo er Katzen quält. Und irgendwann ist er dann von Katzen zu der Ermordung eines Menschen übergegangen. Und die Serie wirkt zuerst wie eine Heldengeschichte. Normale Leute, die gemeinsam einen Täter überführen. Und ja, es war richtig, den Täter aufzuspüren, denn was er getan hat, war illegal und die Behörden haben viel zu träge reagiert. Aber am Ende bekam dadurch vor allem einer, was er wollte, nämlich der Täter selbst.
Ja, also wie gesagt, ne, ich meine jetzt auch beim Fall mit Dave Duft, keine Ahnung, Digga, was wir uns gestern angeguckt haben. Ich meine, es ist ja auch ähnlich, sage ich mal, ne, sowas, was da Iblali in seinem Video hatte, was da Zuschauer rausgefunden haben und so. Also teilweise ist das halt schon wirklich heftig so, ne, und ich sag mal, na, du hast ja irgendwann auch halt so eine Schwarmintelligenz, ne, wenn jetzt irgendwie... Keine Ahnung, wenn du jetzt 10.000 oder 5.000 Leute hast oder lass es 1.000 sein, ne, die sich wirklich intensiv so damit beschäftigen, das Ganze dann irgendwie nochmal zusammentragen in irgendwelchen Videos oder so. Ich glaube, das kann durchaus auch der Polizei helfen, aber man muss halt auch aufpassen, logischerweise, ne, weil wenn jetzt einfach irgendwelchen Leuten irgendwas unterstellt wird und am Ende stimmt das halt gar nicht, Ihnen ja Dankeschön für den Tier 1 Sub, wobei mich jetzt bei dieser Professorin interessiert hätte, ob die Schmerzensgeld bekommen hat, weil in den USA sind das ja meistens immer so 20 Millionen oder so, die man gefühlt bekommt. Oder ob die generell damit durchgekommen ist mit dem Fall, ne? Aber ja, teilweise ist das halt schon hart, ne? Warum sagst du immer, wie gesagt, wenn du es noch nie gesagt hast? Ja. Das Geld juckt mich, ja.
Denn True Crime erzählt nicht nur über Täter, es macht die Täter dadurch auch größer. Viele Täter wollen deshalb vor allem eins: Aufmerksamkeit, Fame und Teil der Geschichte sein. So wie der Täter bei Don't Fuck with Cats. Denn der Täter hatte seine Taten so inszeniert, dass die Öffentlichkeit hinschaut. Er wollte wirklich um jeden Preis Fame werden. Hat sich bei mehreren Reality-TV-Shows beworben, Fake-Accounts und Fanpages über sich erfunden und er hat sogar ein Gerücht verbreitet, dass er mit einer berühmten Mörderin zusammen war, nur um es dann wieder öffentlich bestreiten zu können. Wirklich sein ganzes Leben war darauf ausgerichtet, berühmt zu werden, und zwar egal wie. Und True Crime lieferte ihm dann endlich genau diese Bühne. Denn
sowas zum Beispiel verstehe ich halt doch ehrlicherweise nicht. Also keine Ahnung, dass Leute jetzt irgendwie bekannt werden wollen, ja okay, aber also was hat man davon, wenn du jetzt zum Beispiel, der hat jetzt einen Menschen umgebracht und jetzt, keine Ahnung, sitzt er entweder für immer im Knast oder in der Todeszelle, bis er stirbt. Was hat man davon? Also dann hast du einmal so diese Reichweite gehabt, okay, und den Rest deines Lebens kann sein, dass mal irgendein Podcast über dich kommt, einmal alle paar Jahre, wo der Fall irgendwie veröffentlicht wird, aber in den USA ist lebenslänglich in den meisten Fällen ja auch wirklich lebenslänglich und nicht irgendwie, ja, hier nach 10 Jahren kommst du eigentlich wieder auf Bewährung raus, wenn du Bock hast, oder 25 Jahre. Und ja, das ist schon, also das sind so Dinge, die ich halt nicht checke. Ne? Also dann keine Ahnung, man kann ja auch andere Dinge faken, um sich irgendwie Aufmerksamkeit zu bekommen. Da muss man ja keine Gewalt gegen Tiere oder Menschen ausführen.
Ende der Doku sieht man sogar, wie er im Verhör Sharon Stone im legendären Film Basic Instinct imitiert. Ein letzter Beweis dafür, dass der Mord nichts anderes
Mann, Digga,
als
die soll auch mein Basic Instinct triggern.
sein Stück und die True Crime Doku seine Bühne war. Und ich weiß, dass es paradox ist, weil ich ja in diesem Video gerade ihm genauso eine Bühne gebe, aber ich möchte anhand von diesem Fall die Problematik dahinter veranschaulichen. Denn sein Name, sein Gesicht und seine Taten sind weltweit bekannt geworden und er hat genau das bekommen, was er wollte.
He's going to get the attention of the world now.
Genau das wollte uns die Doku übrigens dann auch am Ende zeigen.
And you at home watching a whole fucking documentary about. Are you complicit?
Aber das steckt einfach voller Widersprüche. Denn sie machen aus dieser Jagd ein 3-stündiges Spektakel und geben dann am Ende den Zuschauern die Schuld dafür, dass sie fasziniert zugeschaut haben.
Ja, Mann. Ja, ich hab die Doku so geil gemacht. Hat dir richtig gefallen hier, ne? Wie Katzen und Menschen gequält worden sind, ne? Haha, selber schuld. Du bist mitschuldig daran, dass das passiert ist und nicht ich, der hier jahrelange Arbeit in diese Doku gesteckt hat. Ja, es ist, ich weiß nicht, so generell über solche Sachen aufklären, wenn wirklich der Aufklärungsaspekt irgendwie vorne ist, finde ich das halt, wie gesagt, sehr, sehr gut, ne? Durch Medical Detectives weiß ich, was Blutspritzer bedeuten, ne? Wie die wo fallen und so weiter, ne? Was das so aussagt, ne? Durch Dr. Marc Benecke. Aber wenn es halt wirklich nur darum geht, irgendwie, keine Ahnung, so ein rieses Unterhaltungsspektakel oder sowas daraus zu machen, wo es nur darum geht, eigentlich den Täter irgendwie nochmal abzukulten und ihm die Aufmerksamkeit zu geben, die er wollte, weiß ich nicht, Digga. Also, fühle ich nicht, ne? Milzemina, ich konnte mir das nicht angucken. Gut, du hast ja auch schon Mieze in deinem Namen, ne? Kann ich mir schon vorstellen,
Und
auf jeden Fall.
das Opfer, Junling, bleibt dabei fast unsichtbar. Ein Freund von ihm kommt in der Doku kurz zu Wort, aber über seine Persönlichkeit, seine Träume oder Leidenschaften erfahren wir nichts.
Ja, juckt auch nicht, Digga.
In der Doku ist er am Ende nur das Mordopfer. Und das ist eben der Teufelskreis. Täter liefern die Taten, Medien machen daraus Unterhaltung. Und wir
Du brauchst einen starken Mann, der das mit dir schaut.
klicken, schauen und
also,
hören.
Nico,
Und
schon
so
mal nicht.
verstecken wir genau das, was wir verstehen oder verhindern wollen. Und die Täter werden dadurch teilweise selbst zu Stars.
Da gibt es richtige Leute, die haben sich irgendwie Jeffrey Dahmers Gesicht aufs Bein tätowieren lassen. Seine Brille wurde versteigert. Ich glaube, dass schon auch True
Digga, es gibt so einen Typen, ich meine, das kennt ihr, das habe ich mal gepostet gehabt, der sich mein Gesicht hat tätowieren lassen.
Crime
Ne?
eine Mitschuld daran hat, dass quasi Menschen denken, es ist okay, Verbrechen zu feiern. Es ist okay, verurteilte Straftäter zu feiern.
I think the glorification of serial killers is not a good look for society. These people are obviously horrible people, and what do we do about them? We give them a TV show, we do documentary series, and then there's some sick freaks out there who write them letters in the mail and fall in love with them.
That's too far.
Und im schlimmsten Fall geht die Faszination zu Tätern eben so weit, dass man selbst zum Täter wird. Sollten wir...
Ja, Digga, das habe ich auch nicht verstanden. Ich habe so eine meiner Timeline gehabt, die hat irgendwie auch so eine Brieffreundschaft mit irgendeinem Häftling aus den USA irgendwie gestartet. Jetzt sind die auch irgendwie verheiratet. Der kommt jetzt sogar bald raus. Der war irgendwie irgendein Drogendelikt oder so. Der hat irgendeiner minderjährigen Drogen verkauft, hat gesagt, nimm nicht so viel davon und nicht durch die Nase. Ja, was hat sie natürlich gemacht? Eine große Line und durch die Nase, Digga. Also, ist natürlich trotzdem scheiße, ist Drogenhandel, ist egal, aber ja, weißt du, der Dealer sagt dir schon, Bro, nicht so viel, nicht durch die Nase, du machst genau das.
True Crime, also wirklich verbieten?
Das ist aber
oder
groß Ding in
sollten wir
Amerika ja
lernen,
safe, aber ich weiß immer gar nicht, was man halt so davon hat, um ehrlich zu sein, ne? Also ich check das halt nicht. So, keine Ahnung, also teilweise sind das ja auch, weißt du, wenn du jetzt weißt, okay, die Person kommt in den nächsten Jahren 1, 2 Jahre oder sowas raus und aus welchen Gründen auch immer hast du dich komplett in den verliebt oder so, ne? Ist vielleicht das eine, aber teilweise heiraten da ja auch dann Frauen irgendwelche Täter, wo du genau weißt, Alter, der hat ja 5 Menschen umgebracht. Entweder der sitzt sowieso im Todestrakt und kommt nie wieder raus, oder der hat halt eine lebenslängliche Haftstrafe und dann wird der wahrscheinlich auch nicht rauskommen, bis der halt stirbt, ne? Leon, Dankeschön für die 100 Bits auf jeden Fall. Und ich verstehe halt immer nicht, wo die Faszination da irgendwie halt herkommt. Also du schränkst dir auch selber einfach dein eigenes Leben einfach komplett ein. So, ne? Du wirst nie einen geilen Urlaub haben, keine Ahnung, klar, du kannst wahrscheinlich den Wert da bestechen, dass du mal bumsen darfst oder so, ne? Aber dann hast du einmal die Woche irgendwie Besuchszeit und die andere Zeit ist ja die Person gar nicht da. Also ich verstehe das halt irgendwie einfach nicht. Also ich würde das wirklich gerne einfach verstehen, weil das ist doch auch kein Leben. So, wenn du die Person vorher kennengelernt hast, okay, Digga, safe, Loyalität und so weiter, ne? Also falls ich mal im Knast sitze, ne, soll meine Freundin da bleiben. Aber ne, wenn das jetzt irgendwelche Randoms sind, die man vorher nicht kannte, ich weiß nicht, was man davon hat, sich im Leben so einzuschränken. Ja, einsame Menschen, ja okay, aber
verantwortungsvoller damit umzugehen. Opferverbände und Forscher sagen nämlich ganz klar, wir brauchen mehr Verantwortung. Bevor ein Format veröffentlicht wird, muss geprüft werden, geht es hier wirklich um Aufklärung oder nur um Sensationslust? Und vor allem darf die Perspektive der Opfer nicht in den Hintergrund gedrängt werden. Einige Formate finden auch Wege, True Crime so zu erzählen, dass es wirklich aufklärt und nicht nur Leid in Unterhaltung verwandelt.
Ja.
Denn hinter jeder True Crime Story steht kein Thriller, sondern ein echtes Opfer. Und die Frage ist, geben wir ihnen ihre Würde zurück oder feiern wir nur die
Heute
Täter?
noch Fortnite? Na, ich gebe deiner Mama auf jeden Fall nachher meine goldene Scar, wenn
Denn
du
wer
das wissen willst.
mordet, geht in die Geschichte ein und wir sind die, die die Geschichten nur allzu gern anhören.
Ja, cooles Ende. Easy. So, ja, sehr schönes Video. Ey, geil aufgearbeitet auch, ne, muss ich sagen. Also gefällt mir richtig gut. Ne? Wir haben schon mehrere Videos von ihr geguckt, aber ich finde, die macht generell sehr qualitativen Content. Ist halt auch wieder schade, ne? So ein Thema kriegt da nicht so die größte Aufmerksamkeit irgendwie, ne? Ich gebe deiner Mann die goldene Shotgun, weil der so klein ist oder was und schnell abspritzt. Ja, wie gesagt, schaut da gerne auf jeden Fall vorbei. Schreibt gerne eure Meinung in die Kommentare. Wie gesagt, ich finde auch, dass wenn es wirklich um Aufklärung oder so weitergeht oder auch dieses Expertenwissen, sag ich mal, im Vordergrund steht, ne? Also wie arbeitet die Polizei, wie hat man welchen Tatverdächtigen ausgeschlossen, dann finde ich solche Formate halt auch sehr, sehr geil. Aber das, was ich jetzt zum Beispiel durch meine Freundin so gehört habe, war halt jedes Mal so, ja, eigentlich mehr oder weniger den Täter abkulten. Ne? Da ging es darum, irgendwie eher zu erklären, was der Täter so alles gemacht hat, anstatt, keine Ahnung, den Fokus auf das Opfer oder die Ermittlungen zu legen. Und dann kann ich damit auch nicht viel anfangen. Ne? Ja, was sagt ihr dazu? Also zu der Reaction allgemein? Schreibt gerne in die Kommentare, wir sagen thanks, bye.
Your opinion of me.
There's much that needs to change.
I've seen the tweets. The day after me leaving Charlie Kirk's memorial, which was the most magical revival I've been in my entire life. Charlie was 31. He's in his mid to late 20s. And I feel what we need today more than anything else is to continue talking to each other. And if we don't learn about each other, what are we going to do? Hate, misinform, agitate, divide, continue to call each other out and create this temperature to go higher and higher and higher? No, guess what? You know what podcast I did with this guy? I don't know if there's a podcast that you'll learn how he became who he became. What caused him to go from being a pro-Thomas Sowell guy, pro-PragerU, to a girl at Daily Wire who he was hanging out with. I think they even liked each other at one point, that became a Jew, converted, and then did certain things, and some retweets, some incidents with Ben, that the temperature elevated. One after another, and then in one video while he's at a university at this Leadership Institute, where the camera is kind of angled and this girl records him saying something about blacks, that goes viral. He gets blocked from all the conservative interviews, and at a young age, he goes from here to the entire whole different level. And I asked him a couple questions. Who are you more concerned about? Jews in America or Muslims? His answer is very interesting. I asked him, who's a bigger net positive, Jews or Muslims? You're going to be surprised by the answer. It's a technical answer, but we had a very good conversation in that exchange. And then a lot of the stuff of where he's at right now, Charlie Kirk, how did Charlie Kirk inspire you? What did he inspire you? And he revealed something I've not heard him talk about before. But all in all, I actually think Here's what's going to be interesting. I actually think his audience is going to like it. I think conservatives are going to like it because you're finally getting to know who this guy is. I actually think, it's going to sound weird, I think Jews and Israel's going to like it. That's kind of crazy. Yes, I actually believe that. But having said that, I hope you enjoy getting to know this individual that is both loved by Groypers and hated by many. And if you're like me, you're in the middle 20% that just doesn't have a clue who the guy is, I hope you get to know him better by the time this interview, this podcast is done with Nick Fuentes.
Did you ever think you would make it? I feel I'm supposed to taste sweet victory. Know this life meant for me.
Adam, what's your point? The future looks bright.
My handshake is better than anything I ever signed. Right here.
You are a one-of-one?
My son's right about
I don't think I've ever said this before.
Okay, so we're finally doing this.
Yes, finally.
Yes. A lot of people are like, I don't think he's ever going to do it. Have him on. You shouldn't have him on, lawyers. Never have him on. This is not good. You're going to be tied in a group. You're in a good place. So that makes me want to talk to the guy. But let me tell you, yesterday I'm at Charlie Kirk's memorial. Obviously, the late, great Charlie Kirk. I'm there. A couple comes up to me, okay? And I'm standing next to Adam, and Vinny's there, and my two boys, Dylan and Tico, are there. This couple comes, can I take a picture with you? Yes, of course, we take a picture. And then the guy gets a little too close to me, a little bit uncomfortable, but he didn't seem like a weird guy. Mm-hmm. Hey, I don't know if you paid attention. He has stopped saying the N-word. Please have him on. I said, who are you talking about? He says, Nick has stopped saying the N-word. I said, no, he said it a lot a week ago. I said, no, he slowed down. He actually reacted. I said, well, we're going to have a conversation. I said, you're probably the first to know that we're having a conversation, and then obviously you're here. Appreciate you for coming out and making the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Nick, I don't know much about you except for the clips I've seen, respectfully. To me, the way I've made my money over the last, 25 years in insurance and finance was watching who has talent. And I would watch somebody, I would say, this guy's got what it takes, right? First time I had Charlie Kirk on at 23 years old, I said, there's something very special about this guy. At 23, I came to my insurance company. I said, this guy's going to be the president one day. Watch this guy closely. First time I watched Tucker, unbelievable talent. When you watch him, humor, sarcasm, intelligence, pushing back, subtle. He's making fun of you. You don't know it. The audience knows it. He knows the art. Candace, talent. Dave Smith, talent. We used to have a comedian working here called Marcelo Hernandez. Who is now on SNL. I don't know if you know who he is or not. Oh, incredible. Yeah. He used to produce Adam's show. And I said, this guy's going to do something special. Now he's on SNL. Vinny, talent. I see you, the way you communicated. Very, very talented. Very capable, very talented. And I've expressed this before on the show before. But I want to know a little bit more about how you became who you are today. And then we'll cover a lot of different topics. So go to high school. 14 years old. Who is Nick Fuentes?
Well, at 14 years old, I was already very political. I've been political since really I was 12 years old.
Why is that?
Well, I just started to develop an interest in politics. There were a lot of political conversations happening due to the rise of Obama, actually, in 2008, 2012. And I wanted to know basically everything about it. You know, when you turn around that age, you start to ask questions about the world and how we all got here and, about things that happened before. And so the first thing I ever watched actually was Thomas Sowell on Uncommon Knowledge with, I think, Peter Robinson. Yeah, they're both excellent from the Hoover Institute. And that was actually the first thing I ever watched, and I just devoured it. I devoured everything.
At 12?
Yeah, 12, 13, 14.
Who introduced you to Thomas Sowell?
I just Googled it. A buddy of mine in school was telling me about the private sector. I said, what is the private sector? What is the economy? And so I just Googled it on YouTube, and that was the first thing that came up, and I watched the whole thing, and it was just, I was enamored by it. And I told my mom, I said, I want Free to Choose by Milton Friedman. That was the first political